Hello, welcome to the Creepypasta Narration Storytime Show. This is your host, Polybloom, the Feathered Dragon. Hello everyone. How are you guys doing? We're just gonna be in a starting soon screen for a little bit. Start everything. And then we're gonna head over to our main screen later on. We're gonna try to read some stories that we have not read before on stream. So that would be fun. And then I'm going to get a sip of water real quick. Alright. Tonight we'll be reading Whose Lane It Is Anyway. If you're a fan of improv comedy, you have probably heard of Whose Lane It Is Anyway show. It is one of the best comedy shows on TV. The best one is ABC for sure. However, one of the installments of the shows that I watched was undoubtedly creepy. Here's what you have to know to understand my disturbance. Who lane it is it anyway? My first originated as a radio series in United Kingdom before coming to TV in 1988, which lasted until 1998. It was a fake game show with the hosts four contestants. There were several games in the game show based on what the audience shouted. Contestants acted out in comprised sketched unit host pressed the buzzer to watch the sketch. Then the next game began. Drew Carey was the host of the US version of the 1998 to 2007. All of the contestants had good relationships. Most undoubtedly, there was a friendship between Ryan and Colin, between Ryan and Drew. The host kept it all in mind. 12 years ago, around 2001 and 2002, was a channel surfing and occasionally switched to Whose Lane. Drew was pressing the buzzer and laughing his butt off. The audience was applauding, cheering, and the guys were standing in stage, all four of them smiling. Some games had just finished. I could have missed some really great stuff. Drew's laughter was hysterical. That was where things went totally wrong. Drew just did not stop laughing as the guys took their seats backstage. It was time for Drew to make another point, related jokes, and announce the next challenge. Instead, he just laughed and laughed. There was an awkward pause. The confused contestants began to look at each other, and that was then Ryan began to act strangely. He was just staring at Drew, observing emotionlessly. He was hypnotized or frightened. It was really creepy. Drew started to cough severely. He rose from the desk and tried to go somewhere, uh, but suddenly fell over face down on the stage. Audience was silent. I did not know why. The camera focused on Drew and occasionally the guys. I didn't think it was I think it was shock because even I felt it was watching. What the hell? Why did they show such a thing? What is going on here? When Drew fell over, the guys jumped up from their seats, all except for Ryan. Instead of helping, he cringed and sat back, while still staring at the agonizing Drew. It was all very unlikely for friends to act like this. It appeared that he did not even cared about Drew's health. Ryan was holding Drew, while Colin on slapped on his back. Braid poured a glass of water for Drew. Did you need any help? Anybody shouted. I think it was from the audience. Nobody bothered to respond, though. The cast talked to each other, visibly concerned about the whole mess. You could not figure out a single word. The microphone must have been switched off for some reason or whatever. I did not know. Colin said something to Ryan. Maybe he even shouted it. Ryan did not answer. He did not shook his head and shrank back even more. I watched, freaked out. Why did they show us something choking nearly to death during prime time? It was supposed to be funny or routine. I am not the kind of person who complains about TV stuff and writes protest letters, but this is was the cause for it. Why are they out of their minds? Drew, still trying to clear his throat, suddenly he coughed blood. Fuck! He shouted so loudly. I think it could have been someone from the crew, maybe Don Patterson, producer. I was totally confused. The program was usually censored, so was unedited film live. But why would they broadcast it? I have no idea. This lasted for another 10 minutes. Nobody came in. Nobody tried to resolve the problem. Lara Hall, the musician, was not present in the piano, however. She usually was not there during non-musical routine, so the last game must have been on one of those at the end. Drew was not showing any signs of life, or typical signs of death. Still, it was immensely creepy. The broadcast was abruptly interrupted for a commercial break. After another Who's Line episode began without any oddities on it whatsoever. So there you have it. As far as I know, nobody mentioned the incident in mass media or internet forums. The show was cancelled in 2005, but Drew Carey was still hosting a couple of TV shows. He is safe. He is safe and sound, and still is the friend of Ryan Stills. I watched for all the episodes of the shows on YouTube, but never saw the particular one again. On one occasion, Drew had choked on from water and was quickly revived. The whole thing took less than a minute, and Ryan was really caring about Drew this time. As well, some Ryan dual ones, like I have my own show. When I murdered Drew Carey became very creepy for me. However, that is basically all I noticed. I still cannot make my mind about what it was. Hey there, Lulu. Glad to have you here. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Whose lane was it anyway? That's the name of the story we just read. Let's read some of the comments. As if lost episodes cannot get any crappier. Alright, let's read some more creepypastas. Oops. There's the comments. I think I'll just put the chat right here. It makes it a lot easier. Easier to read. I'm currently looking at creepypastas to read. Have you read Dead Bart before? I read it on the live stream before, but I wasn't sure if you know this one yet. We could read it again if you want. Alright, let's read that one. Dead Bart. You know how Fox has a weird way of counting Simpsons episodes? They focus to count a couple of them, making the amount of episodes inconsistent. The reason for this is lost episodes from episode 1. Finding details about the missing episode is difficult. No one who was working on the show at the time likes to talk about it. From what was been pieced together, the last episode was written entirely by Matt Groening. During the production of the first season, Matt started to act strangely. He was very quiet, seems nervous and morbid. Mentioning of this to anyone who was present results in them getting very angry and forbidding you to ever mention it to Matt. I first heard of it in an event where David Silverman was speaking. Someone in a crowd was asking about the episodes, and Silverman simply left the stage, ending in a presentation hours early. The episode's production number was 7G6, the title, Dead Bart, the episode label, 7G06, Moaning Lisa was made later and giving Dead Bart production code to hide the letter's existence. Gotta take a sip of water real quick. In addition to getting angry, asking anyone who was on the show about this will cause them to do anything they can do to stop you from directly communicating with Matt Groening at the fan event. I managed to follow him after he spoke to the crowd, and eventually he had a change. I had a chance to talk to him alone. As he was leaving the building, he didn't seem upset that I had followed him, probably expected a typical encounter with an obsessive fan. When I mentioned the last episode, though, all colors drained from his face and he started trembling. When I asked him if he could tell me any details, he sounded like he was on the verge of tears. He grabbed a piece of paper, wrote something down, and handed it to me. He begged me never to mention the episode again. The piece of paper had a website address on it. I would rather not say it was, for reasons you'll see in a second. I entered the address into my browser and I came to a site that was completely black. Except for the lines of yellow text, I downloaded the link. I clicked on it and the file started downloading. Once the file was downloaded, my computer went crazy. It was the worst virus I have ever seen. System restore didn't work. The entire computer had to be rebooted before doing this though. I copied the file into the CD. I tried to open it into my now empty computer, and it was suspected there was an episode of The Simpsons on it. The episode started off like any other episode, but had very poor quality animation. If you've seen the original animations or Some Enchanted Evening, it was similar but less stable. The first act was fairly normal, but the way the characters acted was a little off. Homer seemed angrier, Marge seemed depressed, Lisa seemed anxious, Bart seemed to be genuine anger and hatred towards his parents. The episode was about the Simpsons going to a plane trip, and near the end of the first act, the plane was taking off. Bart was falling around as you suspect. However, the plane was about 50 feet off the ground. Bart broke the window of the plane and got sucked out. At the beginning of the series, Matt had no idea that the animation style of The Simpsons would represent life and death turned into more realistic. This was used to this episode. The picture of Dart's corpse was barely recognizable. They took full advantage of it. not having to move, and made almost a photorealistic drawing of his dead body. Act 1 ended with a shot of Bart's corpse. When Act 2 started, Homer, Marge, and Lisa were sitting on a table crying. The crying went on, and had got more pained and sounded more realistic. Better acting like you would think possible. The animation started to decay even more as they cried, and you could hear murmuring in the background. The characters could be made out. They were stretching and blurring. They look like deformed shadows with random bright colors thrown on it. There were faces looking on the window, flashing in and out as they were never sure what they looked like. This crying went on for all of Act 2. Act 3 opened with the title card saying, "1 year has passed." Homer, Marge, and Lisa were skeletally thin and still sitting on a table. There was no sign of Maggie or the pets. They decided to visit Bart's grave. Springfield was completely deserted, and they walked to the cemetery, and the houses began more and more decrepit as they looked abandoned. When they got to the grave, Bart's body was just lying in front of the tombstone, looking just like it did at the end of Act 1. The family started crying again. Eventually they stopped and stared at Bart's body. The camera zoomed in on Homer's face. According to summaries, Homer tells a joke in this part, but it isn't audible in this version I saw. You can't tell what Homer is saying. The view zoomed out as the episode came to a close. The tombstones in the background had names of every Simpsons guest stars on them. Some of them had once had one had some that no one had heard in 1989. Some of them haven't been shown yet. All of them had death dates on them. Were guests who died since, like Michael Jackson and George Harrison. The dates were when they died. The credits were completely silent and seems handwritten. The final image was the Simpsons family on the couch, like the intro, but all drawn in hyper-realistic, lifeless style of Bart's corpse. I thought occurred to me after seeing the episode for the first time. You could try to use the tombstone to predict the deaths of the living Simpsons guest stars, but there's something odd about most of them who hadn't died yet. All of the deaths are listed as the same date. And here's the video over here if you want to check that out. You thought that was scary? Alright, we're gonna read another one. It was kinda scary. Nice. I see you're more into the more scary stuff. Let's see if we can find anything more scary for you. Ooh, I don't think we read this yet. A Dead Bart update. Yeah, I'm kinda used to it. A Dead Bart update. Well, I had to get rid of that computer I watched the episode on. Even after the complete reformatting, I never worked currently. The episode file could never be deleted from it, and kept it opening on its own. I wiped the hard drive clean several times, and the episode wouldn't go away. Or you'll be dying. No. Just something you'll have to practice, I guess. The sounds control didn't work, and it was a laptop, but the power never seemed to be run out, and I could not turn off. I was going I was I was going to keep the computer just to have the copy of the last episode, but looking at it was making me nervous. I had recurring nightmares several nights in a row. The episode was playing, but instead of the photorealistic Bart corpse, it was myself and 10-year-old. At 10-year-old, I found a picture of myself at 10, and the nightmares was closer to it than my own memories had been. I swear the pictures of myself at 10 dead stare started flashing on the computer screen so quickly that I started never to be sure. After that, I destroyed the computer. I haven't been able to get the episode out of my head though, and decided to do more research to try to understand it. I found a few people online who seem to know about it. Apparently the episode aired once in the suburbs of Poland, Oregon. I have a cousin who was watching The Simpsons during the first season and live around there. So I asked him if he remembered the episode. He asked me how I knew about it. It was a nightmare he had. He had only told his parents about it, and I was only a few years old at the time. I told him about the episode I saw and the people online who remembered it. He thought that I was just playing a prank on him, and when I got him back into the online post about it, he screamed and hugged. Hang up. He hasn't responded to any attempts I made to contact him since. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I kept researching online. I found someone who said they had a tape of it they would sell to me. I was never to be determined. I was nervous but determined to find out the truth about this and end in the matter. I bought the tapes as well as a really old and cheap VHS VS VCR, since I had a feeling neither would be the same after I watched the episodes. The episode was pretty much the same as the files I downloaded. I didn't want to say any more, though this hasn't worth it, and I gave anything back to how I felt when I had the computer with the files scaring me. I destroyed the tapes, but it didn't help. The commercials on the tapes, I didn't want to remember them. They were monsters from my dreams, and I had never told anyone about the news promos from the tragedies that hadn't happened yet. Surreal computers generated animations that wouldn't been possible in the 80s, or now for that matter. A former friend watched it with me, but he saw completely different things. With that exception, there were similarly live news reporting from June 6, 2013 in a completely and complete monotone. He reacted to something the details in a million of people having died in their sleep, some of them waking up for a few seconds first rambling incoherently about something that people could not only piece together had something to do with the nightmares. I'm sure you can figure out what date was on the tombstone of the current life celebrates. There was one difference in the episode itself, though. The joke's Homer was completely clear in this version. It zoomed in Homer's face while looking at Bart's. He said, "If only we all were that lucky." That's the end of that story. That's the end of A Dead Bart's update. Thank you, thank you. Have you watched the show Ed, Edd and Eddy before? They have a lost episode creepypasta about that. Nope. Alright. We're gonna look for more scary stories to read. I didn't think urban legends. Probably next week we'll probably do urban legends reading. Are you a big fan of Legend of Zelda? I know a very long story. It's very lengthy, but it's a good one. I'm a alright fan of Legend of Zelda. Ooh, what is this? Here's something I haven't read before. Jigsaw BBC revealed. You like the art styles? What do you like the art styles of? Oh, the art styles of the game. Alright, we're gonna read Jigsaw BBC revealed. This seems like an interesting one. Is it like the Jigsaw the movie? Creepypasta? Story. The following entry is written by Alfred White. His whereabouts are disclosed at the moment, but he was willing to send me in this email in 2005. Per agreement, I was able to share it to the public. Alfred White. I worked on the light board operator alongside with the production staff of the BBC television series Jigsaw from 1979 to 1984 I was present throughout much of the show's airing. Shivels Doug, not retired, was a director and writer of the show, was hosted by Arnold Hedge. Oh. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Was present throughout much of the show's airing. Can pronounce that word. See Live Doug, now retired, was a director and writer. The show was hosted by Arnold Hedleys. A meme artist who performed several roles in the show, including a sinister character named Mr. Nosebunk, who was seen as a prominist nose, toothy grin, and offset, circular eyes. Nosy Bunk always struck me as a somewhat frightening character, but I never openly opposed to the idea since I was entirely in charge of the production. The show had an overall cheery mood and guided viewers in the puzzle-solving skills, as the cast was mostly friendly and inviting. There was never a moment I had dreaded my job. On May 31st, 1984, a week after the final episode had been aired, I was invited back into the studio by Claire Andrew and the set designer. After some time, he coaxed me into the viewing room, despite the fact that the full production of the show had ceased of the moment and the cast and the crew was now packed up. He told me that he needed to air one final episode of the series before it was too late. I nodded, somewhat confused, but I did not question his motives. As usual, the screen started, the opening sequence began the episode, but at the end of the song, there was now nothing to be complete darkness. What was this? I asked. What's going on? Clark looked at me with condescending stare and turned his attention back on the screen. "Do not question," he responded. Suddenly, there appears to Nosy Bonk playing miniature golf footage of the previous episode, but the film had been corrupted and appeared shoddy, and was converted into a vintage BMW. I remained silent, as did the audio on the film, and continued to watch nervously. Oddly, however, the video stopped abruptly, and the tapes was ejected. Clark moved me back outside, locked the viewing room, and greeted me farewell. When he drove off, however, my curiosity got the best of me. I went back to the inside of the studio through the front door and attempted to break down the viewing room door. To no avail. One of the remaining cast members suddenly approached me from the corridor and offered to unlock it for me. "There you go," she said. "Don't forget to lock it on your way out." Now alone, I peeked inside and grabbed the topmost storage shelf. Before slipping it into the VCR, I dusted it off. I sat near the door in case I needed to make a brief escape. The film started once again as Clark had previously shown me, but it continued further after the supposed ending point. At the point, a faint humming began, but the film still remained quiet. The scene changed suddenly and showed Nosy Bonk at the dinner table in the dimly lit room, a knife sitting alongside him on the table. Nosy Bonk looked into the screen briefly before setting his head back into the table. The film remained this way for a good 30 seconds before it switched into a new scene, in which Nosy Bonk was now seen disproportionately hopping back towards in a sack. Another scene merged with it, but I could not make out what it was, except for what could seen somewhat see Nosy Bonk's mask. Murmuring begins, and some faint screams cannot be heard. A quick flash of one of the cast members' faces appeared before the screens ended. Tape ejected. I I was relieved, but I sat idle on my chair for a while over a few minutes. When I was mustered, when I had mustered the strength to physically grab the tape, I tossed it into the trash bin. Nearby, ran straight out of the performing studio and drove off into the distance. I never returned, not once, not ever. I once told my wife about the incident, but she was mostly skeptical. I had since decided to disclose the information regarding the issue and have experienced what I would call a normal life. End note. The episode was allegedly aired thereafter on the very obscure channel. There was only available on a localized area. As a result, went relatively unnoticed in 2009. A video containing the episode was uploaded briefly to YouTube, but was removed upon the next day in an internet discussion in 1995. Claimed was made on alternative versions of the series altogether may exist. The proposed set designer, Clark Andrew, was purportedly one of the few who remained in the studio after each filming. Tapes labeled with particular codes were also said to be found in a clerk's office, but were apparently discarded. He appeared without any trace in 1985. The following year, subsequently, another corrupted episode was reported to have been uploaded to the media site under an MP4 file. And that's our story there. That was pretty mysterious ending. Cliffhanger note. Any other stories you would like me to read? I'm gonna refill my water bottle. I'll be right back. So that wasn't scary enough for you, right? Give you mints? Alright, I'm gonna refill my water bottle. He wasn't scared enough. I'll find something scary for you. Just you wait. I'll be right back. Rasu, we're back. Alright, we'll read that after this story. I kind of forgot where I was at. Oh well, we just start from here. Suddenly, there appeared a Nosebonk playing miniature golf footage from the previous episode. But the film had been corrupted and appeared shoddy and was converted into a vintage BMW. I remained silent as the audio films and continued to watch nervously. Oddly, however, the video stopped abruptly and the film was ejected. Clerk motioned me back outside, locked the viewing room and greeted me a farewell. When he drove off, however, my curiosity got the best of me. I got back outside to the studio through the front door, attempted to break down into the viewing room door to no avail. One of the remains cast suddenly approached me from the corridor and offered to lock it for me. Thank you, Lulu. There you go. She said it. Don't forget to lock it, by the way. Now alone, I peeked inside and grabbed the tape on the tube up top storage shelf before slipping it into the VCR. I dusted it off. I sat near the door in case I needed to make a brief escape. The film started once again, and Clark had previously shown me, but it continued further down the supposed ending point. At this point, the faint humming began as the film still remained quiet. The scene changed suddenly and showed Nosebonk at the end of the table. In the dimly lit room, a knife sitting alongside him on the table. Wait, we read this. Derp moment. Yeah. Alright. I'm gonna go to the BRB screen while searching. So that just in case we come across something that we shouldn't be seeing. We could always look up the Wikipedia of it. Alright, the Kresu, known as in Cambodia and as that. Let's see, let's go to legend. Belief in the existence of the Kresu shared across Southeast Asia, and its origin is difficult to verify. However, it's likely originates from folklore in Thailand. The Kresu is believed to be a cursed individual, usually a female who engaged in various sins and fraudulent conduct during her previous life. After she dies, her sins seize her, cause her to be reborn as a foodie, something that was to live off wasted, uncooked, or rotten food. In recent time, the Thai entertainment industry has fictionalized the origins of the Kresu was cursed from the ancient something princess as a demonic beauty. 2002. The kidnapped princess of the something kingdom cheated on her husband, the general, with the soldiers. The soldier was decapitated while the Kamor princess was burnt to death. However, before she died, her chanted a spell to protect her mortal body, but was only to be saved her head and her organs. This decapitation, however, merely was just an attempt to put a royal torch to, or to read something, a mythical beginning to a well-known story of a essentially folk legend, strictly for an entertainment and commercial purpose. One critical note that the director of the demonic beauty probably just wanted to depict Kresu as an evil alien demon originating from the witchcraft and black magic as a foreign Cambodian pagan culture, which is ultimately subdued and defeated by the more enlightened Buddhist culture of Thailand. Ultimately subdued. There are oral traditions that say that the spirit was formerly a rich lady that had a length of black gaze or ribbon tied around the head and neck as protection from the sunshine. This woman was then possessed by an evil spirit and was cursed to become the Kresu. Another popular legend claimed that the origin of the spirits may have been a woman trying to learn black magic that made a mistake or used the wrong spell, so that her head and the body became separated. Past sins were also related to the transmission of the Kresu curse. Women who aborted or killed someone in the previous life will become a Kresu or punishment. Other folk stories talked about a person being cursed to become a Kresu have having consumed food or became contaminated with the Cursu salmonella, our flesh. Popular imaginations also claim that the transformation into the Cursu is largely restricted into the relatives of women practicing witchcraft, May Mont, or Y Mont, especially their daughters or granddaughters. Often women acting strangely in the community are suspected to become nightly a Kresu by another member of the village. Cambodian folklore. The word, excuse me, the word derived from Sanskrit word, if I said that right, to cause anyone to suffer. In Cambodian folklore, is usually a woman who is half spirit and half mortal. During the daytime, they appear to look like normal human beings, but during nighttime, they ascended, leaving their mortal bodies, with only their heads and their organs gravitating to find their food. They are believed to feast on smelly things, blood, raw meats, villager farms, animals, corpses, feces, placentas, newborns, etc. Their weaknesses are horns, guard dogs. Apes are witches who fail practicing powerful black magic, causing it to backfire, cursing themselves. After believe that apes are black magic practitioners borrowing a demon, evil spirits, powered by letting them possess their bodies at night. As in exchange, apes has to pass their curse into another woman to be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. It could be their daughter, granddaughter, relatives, or any other woman that is in their womanhood, also practicing witchcraft, but some believe it could be passed through the exchange of bodily fluids to any woman, usually tricked. Witches in Khmer are called Meg, Tomp, Mother Witch. I can pronounce some of these words. In order to protect pregnant women and their child from becoming victims, their relatives place thorny branches around the house as barriers. Their improvised thorny fence discourage the apes from coming to suck their blood and causing them suffering. And pregnant women, after delivery, the woman's relatives must take the cuts placentas far away for burial to hide from the apes. If the placenta is buried deep enough, the spirits will not be able to find it. It's believed that it would bring great calamity to the child and its family if the apes ate the mother's placenta. Thai folklore. The Kresu is under a curse that makes it ever hungry and always active at the night, and when it's out hunting to safety, its gluttony seeks blood to drink or raw flesh to devour. It may attack the cattle or chicken in the darkness, drinking their blood and eating their internal organs. It may also prey on pieces of cattle, such as water buffalo. They have died and the other causes during the night. Its blood is not available. The Kresu may eat feces or Karen. Not that Karen, but I think they're talking about the rotten flesh dead animal Karen. Yeah. Clothes left outside to be found in the blood and excrements, feces, in the morning, allegedly, after she had whipped her mouth. Therefore, villagers would not leave clothes hanging out to dry outside during the night hours. Kresu hides in the headless body of which it originates in a quiet place because it needs to join it before daybreak, living like a normal person during the day, although having a sleepy look. To crush the still headless boy to the Kresu is fatal to the spirits. The flying head will return after hunting to rejoin the body. The wrong body will lead it to suffer torment until death. If the top of the part of the body falls to the lower half before daybreak, it will die in terrible pain. The Kresu will also die in an intense. If its intestines gets cut off, or if its body disappears, it will or gets hidden by someone. Some folks believe hold the creature can be destroyed by burning it. The main foes of the Kresu are mobs of angry villagers carrying torches and machetes. They may catch the Kresu and kill it, or watch where she goes before dawn and destroy her body. There's the legend says that people who are wounded should be aware that Kresu, because it can smell the blood and will come to eat the blood at night when people are asleep. However, there are ways people to prevent the Kresu from coming inside in the house. House owners usually build spiky fences or grow spiky bamboo to protect themselves from the Kresu. Kresu is scared of spiky things because its intestines might get stuck and cannot escape. So these are the folklores from different parts of the world. So what do you think? There's something that I want to read to you. I think that would scare you a lot. Maybe. It's very gory. And I think you like gory things. This is a really scary one. You think it's good? Alright, we're gonna read this one for tonight. Squidward Suicide. I want to start off by saying if you want an answer to the end, prepare to be disappointed. There just isn't one. I was an intern at Nickelodeon Studios for a year in 2005 for my degree in animation. It wasn't paid for, of course. Most internships aren't. But it did have some perks beyond educations. To adults, it might not seem like a big one. But most kids at the time would shit themselves over it. Now, since I work directly with the editor and animator, I got to view the new episodes a day before they aired. I got right to it without giving too many unnecessary details. They had very recently made the SpongeBob movie, and entire staff was somewhat sapped out of creativity, so it took them long to start off the season, but the delay lasted longer for more unsettling reasons. There was a problem with Series 4 premiere that set everyone and everything back for several months. Oh, nice. Me and two other interns was on the editing room alongside the lead animators and sounds editor. The final cut was received. The copy was supposed to be the fear of the Krabby Patty and gathered around the screen to watch. Now, given that it isn't final yet, animators often put up a mock title card, sort of the inside joke for us, with a phony, oftentimes blue title such as How Sex Doesn't Work instead of Rockabye Bible. Then SpongeBob and Patrick adopt a sea scallop. Nothing particularly funny, but work-related chuckles. So when we saw the title card, Squidward Suicide, we didn't think of more than a morbid joke. One of the interns did a small throat chuckle at it. The happy-go-lucky music plays as in normal. The story begins with Squidward practicing his clarinet, hitting a few sour notes like normal. We hear SpongeBob laughing outside, and Squidward stops, yelling at him to keep it down, as he has a concert that night and needs to practice. SpongeBob says okay and goes to see Sandy and Patrick. The bubble splash screen come up and we see the ending of Squidward's concert. This is when things begins to seem off. While playing, a few frames repeat themselves, but the sounds doesn't. At the point, sounds is synced up with the animation, so yes, that's not common. But when he stops playing, the sounds finish as if the skips never happened. There's a slight murmuring in the crowd before they begin to boo him. Not normal cartoon booing at this comment in the show, but you could very clearly hear the malice in it. Squidward in the full frame looked visibly afraid. The shot goes in a crowd with SpongeBob in the center frame, and he too is booing, very much unlike him. This isn't the oddest thing, though. The oddest thing, everyone had hyper-realistic eyes, very detailed, clearly not shot from real people's eyes, but something a bit more realistic than CGI. The pupils were red. Some of us looked at each other, obviously confused, but since we weren't the writers, we didn't question its appeal to children yet. The shot goes to Squidward sitting on the edge of the bed, looking very forlorn. The view out of his porthole window was at the night sky. It wasn't very long after the concert. The unsettling part is at the point that there was no sound, literally no sound. Not even the feedbacks from the speakers in the room. It's as the speakers were turned off. Though the status shows that they show them working perfectly. He just sat there blinking in the silence for 30 seconds. Then he started to sob softly. He puts his hands over his eyes and crying quietly for a full minute more. All the while the sounds of the background very slowly growing from nothing to barely audible. It was sounds of a slight breeze through a forest. The screen slowly begins to zoom in on his face. By slow, I mean it only noticeable if you look at a shot 10 seconds apart, side by side. His sobbing gets louder, more full of hurt and anger. The screen then twitches a bit, as if it twists in on itself for a split second, then back to normal. The wind through the trees starts to get slowly louder and more severe, as if the storm is brewing somewhere. The eerie part of the sound and Squidward's sobbing sounded real, as if the sounds wasn't coming from the speakers, but as if the speakers were holes and the sounds was coming through the holes from the other side. As good of a sound the studio would like to have, they don't purchase the equipment to be that good to produce the sound of that quality. Below the sound of the wind and sobbing, very faint, something sounded like laughing. It came to odd intervals and never lasted more than a second. So if you had a hard time pinning it, we watched this show twice, so pardon me if things sounds too specific, but I had time to think about them. After 30 seconds of this, the screen blurred and twitched violently, and something flashed over the screen, as if a single frame was replaced. The lead animation editor paused and rewind frame by frame. What we saw was horrible. It was a still image of a dead child. He couldn't have been more than 6. The face was mangled, bloodied, and one eye dangled over his unturned face, popped out. He was naked down to his underwear, his stomach curled, crudely cut open, with his entrails lying beside him. He was lying on some pavement. That was probably a road. The most unsettling part was that there was a shadow of the photographer. There was no crime tapes, no evidence, tags, or markers, and the angle was completely off. For the shot designs to be evidence, it would be seen the photographer was the person responsible for the child's death. We were, of course, mortified, but pressed on, hoping that it was just a sick joke. The screen flopped back to Squidward, still sobbing louder than before, in half body and frame. There was now what appeared to be blood running down his face from his eyes. The blood was also done in a hyper-realistic style, looking as if you touch it, you'll get blood on your fingers. The wind sounded now as it were that you were a gull blowing through the wind. There were even snapping sounds of branches laughing, a deep baritone lasting longer intervals, and coming more frequently after about 20 seconds. The screen again twisted and showed a single frame photo. The editor was reluctant to go back. But we knew we have to. This time the photo was that of what appeared to be a little girl no older than the first child. She was lying on her stomach. Her barrettes in a pool of blood next to her. Her left eye was too popped out and popped naked except for her underpants. Her entrails was piled on top of her above another crude cut along her back. Again, the body was on the streets and the photographer's shadow was visible. Very similar in size and shape to the first. I had to choke back vomit. And one of the interns, the only female in the group, ran out. The show resumed. About 5 seconds into the second photo played, Squidward went silent. We did all sounds like it was the first scene started. We put his tentacles down. His eyes were now done in hyper-realism like the others were in the beginning of the episodes. They were bleeding bloodshot and pulsating. He just stared at the screen as if watching the viewers. After about 10 seconds, he started started sobbing, this time not covering his eyes. The sound was piercing and loud, and most fearing-inducing of all of his sobbing was mixed with screams. Tears and blood were dripping down his face, and at a heavy rate. The wind sound came back, and did the deep voice laughing, and this time the still photo lasted for a good 5 frames. The animator was able to stop it for the 4th and backed up. This time the photo was of a boy about the same age, but at this time the scene was different. The intros was just being pulled out from the stomach wound by a large hand. The right eye popped and dangling, blood trickling out it. The animator proceeded. It was hard to believe, but the next one was different, but we couldn't tell what. He went to the next. Same thing, he went back to the first and played them quicker, and I lost it. I vomited on the floor and the animating and sound editor gasping at the screen. The 5 frames was not as if there were 5 different photos. They were played as if they were frames from a video. We saw the hand slowly lift up the guts. We saw the kid's eyes focus on it, and we even saw the frame of the kids beginning to blink. The lead sound editor told us to stop. He had to call the creator to see this. Mr. Hellenberg arrived within 15 minutes. He was confused to why he had to call down here. So the editor just continued the episode.
Listen to music off.
Just continued the episode. Once the few frames were showed, all screaming, all sounds again stopped. Squidward was just staring at the viewer's full frame of the face. For about 3 seconds, the shots quickly panned out, and the deep voice said, "Do it!" And we see it in Squidward's hand, the shotgun. He immediately puts the gun in his mouth and puts the trigger. Realistic blood and brains matter splattered into the wall behind him in his bed. He flies back with the force. The last 5 seconds of the episode shows his body in the bed, on the side, one eye dangling to the left, head above the floor, staring blankly at it. Then the episode ends. Mr. Hellenberg was obviously angry at this. He demanded to know what the hell was going on. Most of the people left the room at this point, so it was just a handful of us to watch it again, viewing the episode twice, only to serve this imprint the entirety of it in my mind and cause me horrible nightmares. I'm sorry I stayed. The only theory that I could think of is the files was edited by someone in the chain from the drawing studio to me. The CTO was cancelled, and to analyze when it happened, the analysis of the file did show it was edited over new material. However, the time steps of it was mere 24 seconds before it would begin viewing it. All equipment involved was examined for foreign software and hardware, as well as glitches, as if the timestamps may be glitched and showed the wrong time. But everything checked out fine. We didn't know what happened, and to this day, nobody knows. There was an investigation due to the nature of the photos, but nothing came of it. No child seemed to be identified. No clues were gathered from the data involved, nor physical clues in the photos. I never believed in an unexplained phenomena before, but now I just have something happened and I can't prove anything about it beyond anecdotal evidence. I think twice before things. I think twice about things. You're feeling sleepy? Okay. Bye bye. I think I'll just end the stream right here also. Thank you for watching the stream. See you next time, Lulu. And tomorrow we'll be having another art stream. So be looking forward to that around 5 p.m. EST. Bye bye.